All right, so these are the latest visuals coming in. You have the Prime Minister in Japan alongside a hug there.
हम जानते हैं कि दोनों ही
visuals are strong. Let's
जो
listen in.
संबंध रहे हैं भारत और अमेरिका के बीच, वो ऐतिहासिक संबंध रहे हैं। कई मामलों में अगर हम कहें तो इतिहास हमारा और अमेरिका का एक जैसा रहा है। हम विश्व की सबसे जो बड़ी डेमोक्रेसी है वो है, तो अमेरिका सबसे पुरानी डेमोक्रेसी है। तो इन तस्वीरों के जरिए आप समझ सकते हैं कि विश्व का जो सबसे बड़ा लोकतंत्र है उसके सबसे बड़े नेता भारत के प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी।
All right, so that's the Prime Minister sharing a warm hug with President Biden of the United States. The Prime Minister is in Japan to attend the G7 summit. What we are expecting is that the US President would be discussing the Ukraine situation as well. But that's the highlights that are coming in. Geeta Mohan, our Foreign Affairs editor, also joins us. A warm hug, Geeta, shared between the Prime Minister and the President of the United States at the G7 summit.
और दोनों ही राष्ट्रों ने जो शासन की जो लोकतांत्रिक प्रणाली है।
I'm going to try and cut across to my colleague Geeta, but the Prime Minister is in Japan, and from there he'll of course be making his way to Australia, but attending the G7 summit in Japan. But a warm hug shared between the Prime Minister and President Biden. On Saturday, May 20th, the Prime Minister also held bilaterals with his Japanese counterpart, Fumio Kishida. Cutting across back to our Foreign Affairs editor, Geeta Mohan, who's on the phone line with us, talking us through the latest that is coming in from Japan and the G7 summit. Geeta, very warm hug shared between the Prime Minister and the President of the United States.
Well, all unexpected lines. These are leaders that Prime Minister Modi has been interacting with very, very closely. And the bromance with most of these leaders, as we have been calling it for years now, continues. President Biden and Prime Minister Modi's scheduled bilateral has not been announced yet, although Prime Minister Modi is going to meet with all the others. It was not announced. But it just seems like there is a lot when it comes to, and a lot at stake as well, when it comes to India and the United States of America treaty. And this also comes just ahead of Prime Minister Modi's first state visit to the United States of America in June. A lot to discuss, a lot to take forward owing to the Russia-Ukraine war and India's position and stand. And it also comes at a time when Zelensky is in Japan and will be meeting with Prime Minister Modi as well. So the entire cohort of the West now also trying to push the entire agenda of how to take on Russia and China when it comes to the war, as also aggression in the Indo-Pacific.
Geeta, the Prime Minister is on a three-nation tour. From here on, he makes his way to Australia. Geeta, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, Preeti.
Yeah, Geeta, the Prime Minister on a three-nation tour from here on to Australia and Papua New Guinea.
Absolutely. It is the second leg which will be critical. Papua New Guinea was a nation where not just Prime Minister Modi but also President Biden was supposed to go. And then from there on, both the leaders were going to travel to Australia. Unfortunately, President Biden will have to return to the U.S. because of the debt ceiling crisis in the U.S. It's a major domestic issue. But Prime Minister Modi is going to be there, and he's going to co-host one of the most important forums, that is India, Indo-Pacific, the Pacific Island Nations Cooperation Forum. And that forum, that CIPIC forum, is critical because the discussions will be, and 14 Pacific Island nations are going to participate in that forum, where they are going to talk about the security architecture of the Indo-Pacific. And this again comes because of the growing aggression in these waters by China. So we're looking at the China leg. And then Australia, again, very important. It is a bilateral
The G7
visit.
now, the Quad Summit later, but where the G7 is concerned, Prime Minister Modi expected to hold bilateral meetings with other world leaders as well. Can you take us through that?
Yes, he is going to hold bilateral meetings with almost all the G7 countries. Like I said, there are certain countries and names that have not been mentioned, but France, we're looking at the UK. The last meeting will be with the UK, the Korean Prime Minister. We are also looking at invited countries and their bilaterals, which is with the Ukrainian president. So all the G7 countries, Prime Minister Modi is going to hold separate bilateral meetings also with. And there are critical conversations not just to do with the Russia-Ukraine war or food and energy security crisis, which is a part of his entire conversation at the G7 treaty. The conversations with the countries bilaterally will also focus on free trade agreements, defense cooperation. There's a lot that France and India expect when it comes to defense and the Rafale deal and taking that forward. So a lot on the anvil when it comes to bilateral cooperation and talks between Prime Minister Modi and his counterparts or the presidents of the other countries.